back to part 2 of this Blazer project. Hopefully this will be about the end of it for this winter because I'm just trying to get it back on the road. So I've been out here working on it. It's New Year's Eve 2021. Just trying to get a little bit done before it gets dark and another big snowstorm comes. So let me show you what I got finished today. Then you can watch me start it up for the first time and see if it's running right. Alright, so here's my messy work surface. So you remember the 4-wheel drive actuator, totally destroyed. Got the new one installed. Here's a picture. I needed a battery hold down, and I didn't get a chance to order one, so I just made one on 3D printer, thanks to whoever modeled that, but it was on Thingiverse. Thanks whoever you are. I got the temp sender replaced. Here is the old one. You can see it broke off, probably because the idiot that pulled the engine just ran it into the side of the car when he pulled it out. But anyway, that's been replaced. I was thinking the belt didn't look too great. It was pretty shiny, so I decided to replace it, even though it really wasn't checking too bad on the back. But I decided what the heck. And then trying to decide if I wanted to splurge for the new tensioner and pulley, which they recommend you do every time, but nobody does it every time. I didn't know how long it'd been, so I just replaced those as well. And these both say GM on them, so these might be original to the car. And see if you can hear this bearing. It's not quite seized, but it's almost seized. This one you can probably hear. That's not good either. And the belt was stretched enough that this tensioner was almost all the way relaxed. So it was definitely a good thing that I did the belt and the pulleys. I replaced all the vacuum lines. Some of these were in pretty bad shape. So those are all done. I found a vacuum hose routing diagram online. Well, actually, I found a few. And man, these systems are confusing, especially when they changed them partway through the run. So here's the spare transfer case I have. And it has this little vacuum switch, where when that plunger, I think the plunger's depressed, it switches vacuum somewhere between these three. So I was climbing around under my car trying to find this. I had this transfer case sitting here and I was like looking at it while feeling up under the car. Finally figured out this car doesn't have that. This car has this electric one right here, which just fell down. And this apparently does the same thing, just electronically instead of with vacuum. So I have all that routed. Going down to the new actuating diaphragm thing underneath the battery. Finally have a battery bolt that doesn't stick out an extra inch. New pulleys, new tensioner, new belt, new vacuum lines. So I started this up in the shop and moved it back, and the tachometer now works. So since the speedometer now sits at 0 instead of 100 and the tachometer works, I bet the speedometer is also working, and I'm about to start it up and see if it runs better now that I probably don't have vacuum leaks like crazy. So let's see what happens. Something I didn't mention in the first video, which will become very apparent here in about 1 minute, is that the exhaust is terrible. I haven't mentioned it, I haven't really addressed it, because all I'm going to do once it's running is just take it to a muffler shop and just say fix it, because it's not worth me laying on my back trying to get it right. That's what muffler shops are for. It's one of the few things I actually take cars in to do. Everything else I do myself. Not exhausts. Success. So remember in the last video, speedometer was at 100, now it's 0. The tach did not work before. Remember my temp was sort of stuck somewhere up in the 240 range. Now it's down to 100. Oil is still pegged. The fuel gauge was up pretty high before. Now it's showing empty, which is probably more accurate. I wouldn't think somebody would have sold me a car this cheap with a full tank of gas. And here, I'll start it up. You can see the tach work. So hopefully some lights come on, because when I drove this home, when I bought it, all these lights were dim and pushing these buttons did nothing. Still have no lights. All right, the work continues. Well, the Blazer is even worse than I thought. It's been about a week or two since the last clips. I ordered some parts, I got them installed, and I'm going to take you around and show you some of the things I found and some of the things that I plan to do when I come back out next week. Okay, first off, the good. I took all this apart and rerouted some of the wires that were put in the wrong place when the last guy swap the engine. And also there was evidence of mice up here, and I could see where they chewed on the plastic. And this corner really stunk like mouse nest, and the heater did not work well. And I was worried that this squirrel cage was just gonna be full of mouse nest. But I took it out and it's clean inside, so I think I'm okay. I think there was a nest right here that was removed before I got it. So I cleaned up the mess. Since I had the coolant tank out, I cleaned that. I cleaned the inner fender well. I cleaned all of that up with just glass cleaner. And it smells a lot better over here now. And that's basically the only good news. So the next thing I'd hoped to address today was the four-wheel drive switch. You saw in previous videos that I was having trouble getting the four-wheel drive to engage. I've now replaced all the vacuum hoses, the actuator, a bunch of things, and it's kind of starting to get down the list of what it could be. So I took out the four-wheel drive switch, I took it home, and I was gonna check to see if it worked. I'll show you a photo right here of a close-up of the solder joints, and they were really bad. I wasn't sure how much of the rest of the switch was bad because it's not just a switch. There's also a couple transistors in there and some lights. I was thinking of completely taking it apart, rebuilding it. Then I looked up a new one is 20 bucks. So I just ordered a new one. I thought that was gonna show up before this weekend so I could come out here and work on this. It did not show up. It's supposed to come Monday. So I touched up the solder joints on this switch, plugged it in, still dead. So we'll see, but I'm starting to think there's another problem because I feel like this should at least light up. All right, so I've saved the worst for last. I came out here with the plan of draining the transfer case and the front and the rear diff and seeing what the fluid looked like and refilling. The front diff went fine. I drained it, refilled it, no problem. The back I just haven't done yet because I have the front up on ramps. I want to put the back up on ramps so I can get to it. But the transfer case is where things got ugly. Here is a couple pictures of the transfer case. I have a gaping hole in my transfer case. Now maybe that's why that spare transfer case came with it. I don't know. But that's not the right one, I don't think. That one is for the 3-button dash switch. I have the 4-button dash switch, and I don't think they're interchangeable, and I don't think the parts, or many of the parts, are interchangeable, but I'm still working on that. I think what I'm gonna do in the meantime is Redneck Mechanic's best friend, JB, weld that hole up, and just see if I can fill it with fluid. Because when I drained it, this is all the fluid that was in there. And I forget what the capacity is. It's like 5 quarts, 4 quarts, I don't remember. But definitely more than that dribble. So I assume it all came out that hole. I don't know how that hole got there. That whole bottom of the case looks almost corroded, like it was at the bottom of a lake. So I guess maybe, a couple 100,000 miles of rocks getting kicked up on it, and then road salt being in Iowa in a winter climate. I don't know, but I'm gonna try to JB weld it and see if it'll hold. If I feel like it next summer, pulling it, rebuilding it, I'll do that. It's not a big deal, but I really want to drive this in the winter. And because of that discovery, essentially, I'm driving the Fiat 500 for another week in sub-zero temperatures. I do have a pretty serious oil leak. I don't know if it's a valve cover or a head gasket, but I'm just gonna kind of watch the oil level and again deal with it in the spring, maybe a quart every 2 months. So I mean, it's not that serious. So I'll worry about that when it warms up too. But now I have to come back out next week, bring some more gear oil, bring some transmission fluid, bring some JB Weld, transfer case fluid. I topped off the coolant and that seems to be staying, so that's a good sign. I realized that there is a contractor style salamander heater out here that's kerosene. I decided to see if I could make that work because it's like 0 degrees out all week. Just to warm up the shop to around 45 degrees, it basically is like $20 a day to run that thing. So I'm gonna keep it down to like a day a week. I'm not gonna come out here and work if I don't have a full day's worth of stuff to do. It's just not worth it. So I've got a couple more containers of kerosene and I'll be out next week and spend another $20 to stay warm. So I guess we'll see you in the next one. Sorry, not much happened here, but baby steps. Thanks for watching.